Yeah, I'll sing some. If you know say you be proud of your beginning, make you the shine your light. Just follow me, follow me, shine your light. Le bambo le wa, bibi nyok tenya tentitia, bibi nyok tenya tentitia. Come any pan this one again. I be proud by me licky girl, yeah. I'm proud of who I am, yeah. C'est pas point tout, yeah. Bafu samo, yeah. Bangante bangjung, yeah. Genta asinta asindo, yeah.
Can't man for me, love will I want. Major one goes away. We proud of who we are. There's it tutti night. There's it tonight. Major one goes away. We proud of who we are.
Afternoon, everybody. And after that beautiful song, I just couldn't stop it until we'd heard the final. We're proud of who we are. So it's great to have you all on the call with us today. We're going to be welcoming additional people in because I think we had about 120 people that RSVP'd in the end. So we're expecting probably another 40 or 50 to actually arrive. So as you see people arrive, just greet them and give them a reminder to introduce themselves in the chat group. It's beautiful to have you all here with us again on this really special session. Could everybody hear the song? I see Chakri says he couldn't hear it. Yes, you could. Okay, sorry, Chakri, just you. So Aziz, let me hand over to you to welcome us in and to just introduce us into the session together. Let me pull up a little slide for us.
Yeah, thank you, Robin. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Okay, this is for Chakri, I think. So Chakri, you've got a piece of music, and we'll send you the song, Chakri, so that you can listen to it and watch it.
I insist.
Don't insist, my friend. We'll do it. Okay, so we're so happy to have you again in this 7th session of Africa Voices Dialogue. You know, Africa Voices Dialogue is a platform that tries to amplify the voices of Africans and connect Africans to the whole world. We're so glad to have you wherever you are, and thank you for coming and thank you for joining us in this very, very, very important topic, education in conflict, that is not just important because of what is going on in Africa, but it is important for the whole world as a whole. Of course, it is a little bit awkward to link those two words together. Yeah, education should never be in conflict, but unfortunately, education is in conflict in conflicts in Africa and in all over the world. There are some places that are still suffering from lack of safety, where safety should be a priority. As you see, we have a number of hosts that are going to be introduced very soon by my friend Robin. I will just give a very, very brief introduction to this topic, and I'll start here. Of course, you know that there are a number of declarations that have been endorsed by almost every country. But the question that I want to raise with all of you is it enough to endorse declarations? Of course, it's not. We have endorsed declarations to stop conflicts and to give a safe place to education and to kids to have an education everywhere. I guess we have not endorsed education, so let's endorse education and make it safe for everyone to have this education that we need. Robin? Of course, the United Nations Secretary General said that the world fights the pandemic, but as the world fights the pandemic, we should not forget that there are many students and kids who are in danger and who need and have, we must ensure, as he said, that these children have a safe and secure environment in which to learn the knowledge and skills they need for the future. So this is coming from someone who is representing a great organization in the world, but testifying that we still suffer from a serious problem. There are some facts about education in conflict around the world that you're going to see shared with all of you now. I don't want to read all of that, but you can screenshot it, of course. It is taken from Education Under Attack 2020, but you can see the numbers, the figures are hilarious. Like first one, more than 22,000 students, teachers and academics were injured, killed or harmed in attacks on education during armed conflicts or insecurity over the past 5 years. And between 2015 2019, 93 countries experienced at least one reported attack on education. And at least 17 countries in Africa are routinely affected by attacks on education, armed conflicts, and the consequences of these. Today, we are going to have some testimonials from real life, people sharing their stories with us. And before we do that, we're going to watch a short video that shows us more realities around the world when it comes to education in conflict. Robin, please. Thank you.
هون كانت مدرسة ندرس فيها اتخصفت والبرميل فات لهون انفجر. أتمنى ترجع المدرسة مثل ما هي.
malal bang wasa masangu mo bunyi nang kubantu aba bermo akala mutulación kiba mbaba buela batutulación sumijul punya kasho buni mekanda mi kwa mubiro yam.
Yo vivo aquí en el caserío. En el caserío nos pusieron bomba cerca de la escuela.
Прямых попаданий не было. Возле школы часто ложились снаряды. На футбольном поле, чуть дальше территории школы.
من بيتي إلى المدرسة لا أشعر بأمان أنا وزملائي بسبب المباني المهدمة والمسلحين، وأحيانا أشوف كلاب وأحيانا أشوف نقاط جنب المدرسة، فهذا يسبب خطر لي وأصدقائي.
إنه مستوى التحصيلي تدنى، عدة وكمان حالة نفسية، اكتئاب، شعور إنه بالحرج أنا بديش أروح على المدرسة. هاي إشي كثير بصير عنا.
Как мы там получаем знания, и если она будет опасная, то как бы знания дети так не будут получать. Если вот, допустим, если она будет опасная, то мы будем постоянно дома сидеть, и знаний вообще никаких тогда ни у кого не будет.
Потому что хотя бы школа должна быть тем местом, где ребенок будет чувствовать себя.
Na ɗaya bai kamata ba tilasta ma yaro ya aikin Allah. Na biyu bai kamata ba lakwal ta zama filin daga. Na uku bai kamata ba lakwal ta zama wajen ajiye makamai.
المدرسة تكون مكان أمان. المدرسة بيتي الثاني. المدرسة حق من حقوقي، أنا من حقي إني أتعلم بأمان.
Thank you, Robin. So as you have seen, these children have all spoken about the atrocities that they live or they have lived. And as we know that education has no stake in armed conflicts, whatever conflicts it might be. So we hope to learn more about it in this session, and we are going to see our speakers, our hosts, and how they are going to share their experiences with us. And we're going to connect together, of course, with all of them in breakout rooms. Robin?
Thank you. Yes, so thanks, Aziz. So just a quick reminder for anybody who's new to these dialogue series. So the goal of the dialogues is really not to have a whole sort of series of lectures or a lot of expertise that comes through. It's really to share experiences with each other and to share our lived realities with one another. And so what we try to do as much as is possible, and it's always frustrating because 2.5 hours seems like a long time, but when we're in it, it's extremely short. But what we do try and do always is have kind of a balance between a conversation that happens in this main forum with each other, in this main room together, where we have a holding circle of those who are listening in, and kind of the hosts and the people sharing with us who are held in the center, and we really try and hold a space to listen very carefully to them. And then we balance that with breakaway spaces where we can share with each other our own experiences, share thoughts that are provoked, meet each other, possibly make some really good connections. And our hope is always that those connections are sustained beyond the dialogues, that there are opportunities for people to engage, meet with each other, and take up some of the themes and some of the thoughts that come through the dialogues. So that's just for those who are new. Please, if you don't mind, just keep an eye on your mute function. If you are wanting to talk, just pop your hand up. You can unmute yourselves. If there is a lot of background noise, we will mute everybody so that we can hear the person speaking at that point. So just keep an eye on that. And now I'm going to hand over to Andrew just to briefly introduce our speakers. So I'll quickly introduce, where has it gone? Introduce the speakers for the day, and then we'll go back and Andrew will just give us a little more context. So today's speakers are Angel Mesa from Cameroon. So Cameroon is our host country for today's session. Wycliffe Barasa is from Kenya. And Fisson Muganda is from Uganda and the DRC. And these are each the most phenomenal human beings. Being in conversation with them has been absolutely incredible over the past couple of weeks. So thanks to the three of you. We are grateful and honored to have you here with us. And Andrew, I'm going to hand back to you just to do a little bit of a context set. And for a brief starting conversation before we move on to Angel's story. Okay, there we go. Andrew. Are you in the room, Andrew? I saw he came in and fell out again. Okay.
He's going to join us soon.
I think he's still connecting to audio.
Yes.
All right. So I'll just start just really with a brief. Andrew, are you back in the room with us?
Just go ahead, Robin. You can start.
All right. So yeah, just to start with a little bit of context. As you know, we usually in our RSVPs try and get a sense of what people think and feel and what their experiences are around the topic in hand. And the responses to this session's RSVPs were absolutely mind-blowing. We really found them very powerful, and our hope is to be able to write a little bit of an article or a research piece on them just because of the power of the responses that we received. But just a sort of overview, in asking the respondents to this session, and there were, as I mentioned, about 120 respondents, the responses came back to the question of whether your country or community has been affected by issues around conflict, with 77% of people saying that indeed it had, their countries and communities had been, and only 22% saying not. And the sort of scope of what the scope of the effects of conflict on people's countries are really vast. So from issues around war and conflict to displacement, migration to escape conflict, high levels of refugeeism in their countries. Sorry, I don't know who's playing on the screen, but and then decreased access and levels of education, trauma and post-traumatic stress disorder, and other impacts of conflict. We really saw that people's daily lives are significantly affected by the issue of conflict in their communities, in their schooling environments, and in their education spaces. And perhaps just to kick off with, what I'd like to ask is for Andrew, Fiston, and Wycliffe just to each give your brief response to what you see in those stats, to what it precipitates for you. And after that, we'll move to Angel to listen to the story of her work in Cameroon. So, Fiston, what is your thought? Or, I don't know, Andrew, yeah.
Yes, thank you, Robin. As this data is speaking to us, you can see, as Robin has said, from this survey, we took responses from our community, 91 responses. From war and conflict, 42%, that is 46% were affected. On displacement, 70.3% are affected. Migration to escape conflict, 52.7% were affected. Refugee status, 34.1% are affected. Decreased access to education, 56% were affected. Trauma, that is post-traumatic stress, 53.8% were affected. And other impacts of conflict, 45.1% were affected. So you can see almost everybody is affected. And if not directly affected, they are indirectly affected. And now going to Agel Mesa, going to Agel and Wycliffe, does this data resonate with what is on the ground? I start with the Agel. Agel, does this data resonate with what is on the ground?
Thanks. Could we just ask whoever's playing some music to mute it?
I have muted.
For which?
Angel.
Robin?
Yeah?
Robin? I have just unmuted everyone, and in order to unmute Angel, we need to give her the hand. So that's how we're going to do it, if you don't mind.
All right, perfect.
So yes, so Angel, is it Angel who is going to talk now? Yes. So you can if you can find her, just help her unmute herself.
I have done. There we go.
Yeah. It worked. Hello, everybody. I just want to check if you can get me well.
Yep, it's great.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. My name is Angel Mesa. I am a Cameroonian. I am an education technology entrepreneur by profession and an instructional designer also by training. So I run EduClick. EduClick is an edtech organization where we develop alternative learning methods for those who can't access formal education. So I'm going to talk about the background that led to, that is the why we created EduClick And the history is going to like go back into history, pick a bit from geography and the current situation. And I'm also going to give the floor to my colleagues who are present here, especially Harrison, to also share his story with you. So in 2016, broke up an armed conflict in Cameroon. So because before then, Cameroon has always been looked upon as been the only peaceful country in the Central African region, because we have neighbors like Nigeria, we have Chad, Central African Republic, who've been going through histories of wars, conflicts, and we've been like those who've been receiving the refugees from those areas, and we've like not known any war, any like major crisis since independence. So if I go back to the history of Cameroon for you to better understand what caused the conflicts and why it is so important, I will go back to history, where before independence, Cameroon was under the protectorate of France and Germany, and France and Britain. So France actually had 80% of Cameroon, while Britain managed 20%. So after that, there was a referendum for reunification. So what happened is the English-speaking part, which consisted 20% of the country, and the French-speaking part decided to come together and become the Federal Republic of Cameroon. So when the current president came to power, we became, through a decree, the Republic of Cameroon. So over the years, we've been living together, having two official languages, English and French, living together as brothers and sisters. Because me, for example, I come from both areas, because my mom is from the English-speaking part of Cameroon, but my dad is from the French-speaking part of Cameroon. So I have a family in both. So after living together for several years, it became like very evident that the English-speaking Cameroonians felt somehow marginalized and not considered. For example, we have two national official languages, that is the English and the French, but all documents, most documents are published only in French and not English. And there are so many other instances where the English-speaking part realized that they were left back. So what happened, it started with a strike from English-speaking lawyers who were not happy with the way judgments were being made, how judges were French-speaking, and some people were condemned wrongly because they didn't understand the language. So that strike was repressed in a very brutal manner. The military set in, harassing the lawyers, beating, and it came up from there. So from that time, we now started having the situation where, so it brought some kind of nationalism and brought together, it saw the birth of a group which we call the secessionists. Because what happened is, at the beginning, what the lawyers were demanding was like to revisit the way, like a better life for the English-speaking Cameroonians. But since it was like taken with much brutality and stuff, some people just came up and said, okay, we want independence. So we want an English-speaking Cameroon, which is like an independent state on its own, with its own laws and stuff like that. And that was completely denied. And that's when the crisis broke out in its current form. And from that period until now, that region has not known peace, because who we call the secessionists have a way of acting which is sometimes regarded as terrorism and all the like. So at one point, they realized that the government was not actually listening to them. And the only way they could take to put pressure on the government was to shut down schools. So they said they don't want any schools in those regions, in those English-speaking regions. As a result of that, students were killed on their way to school, some were killed in their classroom, teachers also were killed, either on their way to school or in the classroom. And as a result of that, schools were completely shut down in those two regions. So for about 3 years, schools were completely shut down. So given that we had already, EduClick was existing actually, but it was as it was just an organization where we like facilitate job access to young Cameroonians and stuff like that. So that's when we thought on like, it's not possible that kids don't go to school. And we didn't know for how long the war was supposed to last. And we were right, because 5 years later, it is still ongoing. So what happened is we set up EduClick, we started with like SMS learning. Because at that same period, internet was restricted in those English-speaking regions. So there was no internet, and sometimes for long months, no electricity and all the like. So we've actually tested several different products in that region, because we've tested SMS learning, we've tested WhatsApp learning, we've tested web learning through a mobile application or learning through a web application. And we've also tested physical teachings. But given that for security purposes, we've actually, the physical aspects of the teachings have not worked so far until now. But what we do is we have a hybrid system of teaching actually, because we realize that after, like, from working in this field, what we realize that our youth, actually the audience which we're targeting had very different needs. So while some were living in like urban areas with a degree of access to the internet, others were living in very remote areas with no internet, with no smartphones. And that is actually those we wanted to reach, because for those who could use the internet, they could like sometimes find their way for alternative information online and stuff like that. But when we started targeting those who could not access internet and electricity, we also realized that there was another challenge, which was we're actually working with people who have not maybe used a smartphone before, who have never used a computer, so could not even like go to the internet to find their way and the information and stuff like that. So at the end of the 3rd year in testing different products, we decided to come up with this hybrid system which we have today, which consists of training, mentoring, and facilitating job access. So what we are doing today is we are building an e-learning platform. It's a web application which we call educlick.africa, where it's actually a marketplace where teachers anywhere can just develop content, upload to the platform, and the learners can also take. So we are working mostly on how to make it accessible offline, for accessible offline. So what also happened is in 2019, last year, the COVID-19 broke out. So, and it came at a time when we're one of the only we're like one of the only organizations doing e-learning. So we're like the main platform learning at the period. So during that period, we worked with so many colleagues who like take e-learning who are very passionate about making education accessible to people in unfavorable regions, mostly sometimes because of their personal history, because they come from there, maybe because they live from there. And one of the people that really worked very hard with EduClick during this period was Harrison Ashangoa, who was like the frontline trainer at EduClick, and who was like experience using all sorts of platforms, from Google Classroom to Zoom to WhatsApp to in short. So I'm going to give the floor to Harrison to talk about like his personal story and why he joined EduClick and all the work we've been doing together.
All right. Thank you so much, Angel, and hello everyone. As Angel said, my name is Harrison. I am an engineer by training, and I am from the English part of Cameroon. So the realities of the conflict in Cameroon is like it's so real to me personally, because my family is in the English part of Cameroon. Lucky enough for me, my university studies was in the French part of Cameroon. But in 2018, my younger sister was kidnapped because she schooled at the university, one of the universities in the English part of Cameroon. My younger sister was kidnapped, and I think we paid almost $1 million CFA for her release. And that's the reality of the crisis. It's just like every Anglophone or every person from the English part of Cameroon, I think that felt the impact of the crisis in one way or the other. Whether you are out of the country, whether you are in the country, whether you are in the French part of Cameroon, all of us have all felt the impacts of the crisis. And it's so important that such discussions and conversation, we can share our experience and what we do. So with what we do with EduClick is that I'm very lucky that I've had a lot of opportunities, maybe as a young person, to get exposure about. I mean, I studied engineering, one of the best schools in Cameroon. I've got a lot of people who have mentored me along the line. But when I talk with a lot of young people back home, and even in other parts of Cameroon, they always ask me, how do you do this? How do you get things done? How do you improve yourself? So I thought it wise that it was something good to join EduClick, because Angel is a friend that I know and she has been doing really well. So when the COVID-19 breakout, we really saw the need of this, how education can be hindered, especially in conflict affected areas. Imagine there's conflict in a part of the country, and then a crisis like COVID-19 still breaks out, and you can imagine the challenges that were present. And with EduClick, what we did was that with the hybrid system, I got the opportunity to actually tutor students using Google Classroom, online, WhatsApp, SMS, and stuff like that. And it was really exciting because majority of the students I got to interact with, I got to teach during that period, they were really inquisitive. They really used that as an opportunity. They didn't see the challenge, but they use it as an opportunity to pick up. To really get some of their lessons without necessarily going to classrooms, without necessarily given the challenge at hand. And it was really exciting. And lucky enough for the students I tutored, all of them passed their final exams. And it's so exciting because when I look back at how things have evolved in the English part of Cameroon, I am presently mentoring a lot of young people from the English part of Cameroon. And the challenge is real. They can barely go to school. Sometimes classes are canceled because of insecurity. And worst of it all, internet is not stable in the English part of Cameroon. So aside the conflict, internet is not stable, electricity is not constant, and these challenges are so real in these places. And it's good that platforms like EduClick is there to bridge that gap. Though we cannot reach out to so many of these students, we cannot reach out to all of these students, but the little we can do, I think it is doing a lot in promoting education, despite the conflict, despite the challenges that we face. So EduClick is really exciting because through this, I've also been involved with a lot of holiday programs that we empower young people, students, girls in particular, to pursue career in STEMs and a lot of things like that. So basically, these challenges are real in the country. Like I said, recently I was in the English part of Cameroon just 2 days ago, and we can imagine that a lot of students came to me that they're facing a lot of challenges accessing material because of the internet, because of electricity. There's a part where the university is, in Bambili. There's a part in the English part of Cameroon they call Bambili, where the university is. Electricity for the 3 days that I was there was no electricity, there was no internet connections. So it's so sad that with the conflict, electricity is still not stable, internet is still very difficult. A lot of people still can't access that. So at the end, how do we actually use alternative means to reach as many students as possible, given these challenges and miss the conflict and everything? So that's what we are trying to do at the click with other actors in the field and everything. Unfortunately, in the English part of Cameroon, I mean, you will hardly go there maybe to have like on-site programs, maybe to reach out to students and like in presence, face to face. But through technology and the online platform that we are trying to build and everything, hopefully we can change the situation. But our best option is that the crisis should come to an end. It's been 5 years and a lot of people have not gone to school. A lot of students are out of school. A lot of students have been killed. Just 2 days ago, a 5-year-old child was killed in Boya by a military person. And the circumstances are surrounding that, the killing of that child, are still not so clear to us. But it's a sad situation in Cameroon. And hopefully, throwing more light, talking about it, the government and the secessionists, they can come to a compromise. We end the crisis. The only solution to this problem is ending the crisis. Otherwise, there are a lot of villages, a lot of remote areas in that part of the country where students don't go to school. There are places where students don't go to school. It's just some places of the city where schools are frequent, where military people are there. It's difficult to be going to school and you're accompanied by a military man. How will you learn? There are situations where in some parts of the English part of Cameroon, military people are teaching students in class. So how will a student, looking at my experience from learning, how will students learn when someone with a gun is teaching them? So it's so difficult, and we hope that things can come back to normal, but we keep doing what we can do to foster education.
So thank you so much, Harry, for sharing that. What is resonating very well, Cameroon is just a representative of many countries in Africa. We talk about Sudan, which has been affected by conflicts. We talk about Kenya, which recently was affected by conflicts in one of the countries. We talk about Somalia, where students are still at home. We talk about Uganda, whose students are yet to go back to school. We talk about Ethiopia. So when Harrison talks about conflicts, that is just a representative of many countries in Africa, because in these conflict zones, the well-being of our kids is affected. That is, they are emotionally, they are cognitively, they are physically and socially unstable. And living and learning conditions, not just learning, but even learning. Arizona has talked about lack of electricity, lack of essential needs, besides not going to school. So living and learning conditions are very harsh, and students grow up in fear in these zones. And in a way, they feel to have lost a sense of belonging, forcing them to look for it elsewhere. And this elsewhere could be in militia groups, in prostitution, in forced labor, in early marriages, and other forms of abuse. Do you have a question to the Cameroonian team from the audience?
Yeah, please just pop your hand up if you'd like to ask Angel or Harrison a question. And I'm just going to kick off quickly by asking both of you, what kind of percentage-wise, what percentage of the children in the country do you feel are affected, and how has EduClick been able? What numbers has EduClick been able to reach of those? What's the impact that you're starting to see from the work that you're doing, which is critical, providing access somehow?
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to take that question. Actually, what happened is there was a time, that is 2018, where we had about 1,000 users like full-time users learning with us. So now what happens is our numbers are a little bit conflicting, because during the COVID-19, we had like an increase in the numbers and got to about 10,000. So we're not really able to like identify who were the main users. So I'm going to talk about the statistics before the COVID-19 crisis. So what also happens is before the COVID-19 crisis, we're teaching basically the national curriculum. That is, we're making a subject that is what is taught in school to be taught in those different regions. But in the course of doing that, we are doing towards 2019, there came a new, like a new category. So those are kids who are already 15 years or above, who have been out of school for about 4 years, and who no longer wanted to like have the same skills of formal education. So what they needed was marketable skills, which they could use to actually get a job to sustain their families. Because with the crisis and the lockdowns, because there's also this thing which we call the lockdown, where people are not allowed to leave their homes, and sometimes it stays for a week, sometimes for days, and they have to be indoors, and how do they feed, how do they live? So most families now wanted, like most of the kids 15 and so had to like drop off of school and like get marketable skills. And we also realized that there's another category which we worked in partnership with UNICEF, which consisted of like registering primary school children in school, that is the internally displaced, like those who were able to move from these English-speaking regions to the French-speaking regions. So to send them back, they were registered back in primary school. So another difficulty which they face there is foundational literacy and numeracy skills. So despite the fact that they had the age, they were aged like between 12 years and going down, that is between 5 and 12 years, most of them could not read, most of them could not like do basic calculations, additions, and subtraction. So the program we launched was supposed to be, the program we launched was to like teach them how to read. Like it was actually a camp which we do that. So the project was just like, it's a prototype which we tested with 5 schools in the Eastern region. It consisted of creating camps of 10 days, developing a reading and numeracy curriculum. So bringing the students after school out of their different classes and teaching them starting from the alphabet to enable them to be able to like pass other subjects which they were already having in class. So, and also, finally we had to launch after a program about marketable skills, because the skills we thought it would be easier for them to like gain and be able to learn from their houses, where what we are technology related courses. So we tell them, for example, we've taught graphics design, we've taught them learning how to learn, but that was a course that was offered by a friend offered us that course, that is like learning how to learn. So we've taught them that how they could learn other things from their homes, graphics design, digital marketing, and programming, basically web development. So at this level, currently we have about 112 learning with them, so doing the marketable skills. So we also found ourselves at the point where it was very difficult for these people to like the difficulty of using the smartphones and the internet tools. So we set up a kind of very simple technology lab where we teach them basics of computer, like how to switch on and off a computer, how to search an information online, how to use EduClick and stuff like that. And currently, we've been invited actually to teach teachers how, because another problem was teachers also from the region. So what we want to do now is teachers from the region do not also know how to use those tools. So they know how to teach, but they don't know how to use maybe a computer to teach and stuff like. So for next week, we are starting the program, but we're starting with Yaoundé, where we are teaching teachers put our disposal by the Ministry of Education how to manage an LMS. I'll be teaching actually how to use EduClick, how to add content to EduClick, how to record their courses and stuff like that. Next month, we're supposed to be in the Southwest region, but given the instances and what happened recently, and since the city is still in too much turmoil and so many people are not happy, it seems like the training is not going to hold for next month. So, but actually what we believe is that actually what we are doing is like, we want to create like a center where we call it an innovation center. Harris also has worked so much in the center, and I think in 2000 and before COVID-19 broke out, I don't know, during COVID-19, Harry was like our best teacher because he taught students who actually took the national exams, and he scored a 100% grade because like all his students made it to the national exams. Yeah, so that's basically what we've been working on. Sorry for being long.
It's wonderful. It's because it's such amazing work, and your passion is so huge for it. It's just amazing. Thank you, Angel. So I'm going to quickly, as always, our time is short, so we're going to, I think, rather have this conversation here for a few moments, not have an initial breakaway room. We'll have one after Fiston talks, but I would like to create the opportunity just for Haruna. You had a question. So if you'd like to ask your question, and perhaps before you, Angelina can ask her question, as she had her hand up first. And the question that came from Chakri that he asked me to ask was, what kind of support? Where do you receive support from? You mentioned UNICEF. Is there support also from any other entities, corporate entities, or government at all? So perhaps, Angelina, you can ask your question and you can incorporate Chakri's question in your response as well.
Oh, thank you. Oh, sorry. Is it Angelina or Angel?
Angel.
You,
Angelina, and Angel is.
Thank you, Robin. My question was, what next after now? I understand that these students were able even to do exemplary well in national exams. Are there plans which are underway for these students also to pursue higher education? Then after that, what next? That's what I've been kept on wondering, because they are doing exemplary well in the maybe basic education, as we would say in Kenya. So what are the future plans for the students who are likely to transit to the higher levels of education?
Okay, thank you for your question. Let me start from the previous question. Actually, in 2018, we received the African Union Education Innovation Award. And that was like it was accompanied with a grant of $4,000 US. And that has mainly been the support that we received for our work. So we don't have like a formal partnership with UNICEF, but we've actually consulted with them to build some products, because they also work in the field. They work with refugees in the eastern region of Cameroon, and they're also like interested in like enrolling primary school children internally displaced back in school. So when they enrolled the children, they realized that the children were not doing well, and they did actually a field research which showed that they didn't have the basics of reading and writing. So we were like called upon to like develop a curriculum that will actually help them like do a very express teaching in about 10 days to like help these children be able to identify sounds and be able to read and write and count in order for them to do well in the other subjects. So we normally supposed to produce a report on that with the teachers that are ongoing. So that's the state. So actually our activities at EduClick have been self-sustaining, if I would say so. It's been much of bootstrapping, because we have so many volunteers, like the teachers who work with us, they offer the time for free. We don't actually pay them. So what we do is like, we also organize sometimes some paid lessons. For example, we organize holiday camps, like one we did last year. What we do is like we reinvest the money we get from that and stuff like that, but we've not actually had external support. We've had people who have offered some of their paid courses for us to use for free, and on our platforms. We've had people who have like offered, for example, doing website updates. For example, our EduClick .Africa website was actually designed for free by somebody. So those and the teachers actually have been of great support to us, because they've been like the main supporters of the program. Our friends also have been supporting families and stuff like that. Yes. Now to go to the second question about our plans for those who go to the higher education. Actually, we don't have plans for them, because what we are doing is, as I said at the beginning, our model is like training, mentoring, and like enabling them to find jobs, because EduClick also has another platform which we call educlickcareers.com. There it's a search engine. What it does, it searches the website and copies opportunities for which Cameroonians are eligible and updates the platform every day. So we use that platform with the kids who are like completing their national exams, or maybe have taken courses like marketable courses, capacity building courses. What we use that platform for is like, we use that platform to access like all opportunities relevant for Cameroonians. And what we do is like, we help them apply, we help them build their CVs, their cover letters, and stuff like that. But we don't have a specific program for them, like after passing your national exams, what next? The only option we have is like maybe taking a marketable course to actually look for and help you look for a job. That's it.
Thank you, Angel. So super quickly, because we want to move to Fiston, whose story is one of the most mind-blowing, remarkable. He and his colleagues. So I'm very excited to hear from them. But Haruna, if you'd like to quickly ask your question, and then Angel, a super quick answer, and then Fiston, we're going to come to you.
Robin,
yes.
Robin, we just want to remind everyone that you can connect to everyone here. You can connect with Angel even after the session. You know, this is one of the reasons why we are here today. We want everyone to connect with everyone. If you want to learn about the works they're doing or how they've been doing it, of course, as focus more than on those predicaments.
Absolutely, and please continue to ask questions in the chat, and Angel and Harrison just answer the questions coming through. So Haruna.
Okay, thank you, Angel, for the good work that you are doing in Cameroon. So I just want to know your coverage of the two areas that are in conflict, because you said that there is 2 regions that are in conflict. So what is your capacity of covering these 2 areas? And most of the problem that you mentioned is at the primary school, they don't know how to read, they don't know even the basic calculation. So what is your plan to encourage like people to become a teachers? Because I can imagine that in this kind of situation, maybe education or teaching will not be the first vocation for the youth now to be working in education, because in the future, it will not be like primary school teacher in this area, because it's like it's locked for them. So what is your plan for encouraging people to just have this education, like a vocation, to do it for the best of this English country, in the English localities? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that question. The two regions are totally like very, very untapped. We've not covered 30% of that region because we've not yet had the capacity to do so. So about the teachers, what we do is we really made it open. Like if you visit our platform, Educate Careers, you see that anybody anywhere can enroll as a teacher and teach with us. So our next plan actually is like populating this platform with much more content and designing an offline version. Because another thing we tested is what we call the USSD system. And we realized that it can actually work. It's easier to use, but setting it up is actually a bit complicated and costly. So what we are doing now is like advocating for education. Like what happened recently in Boya, we're actually attacked because people were like, you've been advocating for girls to go back to school, but now how can you make sure they are protected and they don't get killed by a bullet or stuff like that? So what we are doing is like, we are actually working on like advocating, building new networks, talking to people and inviting them to support our projects and like build the platform with us and make it accessible so that we could reach at least 70% of that population, because we feel it's like it's dangerous, because right now, as you said, education is not a priority, but it's dangerous because living in such an area, being hungry, not having an alternative for survival and stuff like that, it radicalizes. And now, since we're fighting to reduce the number of cessationists, it's easier for more youth, more boys to like join that category, which is not what is needed. So that's basically where we are.
Oh, thank you, Angel. Sure. And this is Chakriwa. We need the 10 hours. But thank you. That was absolutely amazing. So I'm going to ask Fiston and his colleagues to start speaking. So Fiston, I'm just going to pull your screen up. And as I mentioned, we're going to not have a breakaway room now. We'll have one after Fiston speaks. But yeah, just welcome to you. Please introduce yourself. We are so looking forward to hearing your story.
Okay, thank you. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for the welcome. Angela, must acknowledge your story. It was so moving. I only go ahead my two hands on my cheeks and give him wishes. I wish all this had, was happening in my country as well. So thank you for the nobility. Thank you for all that you're doing. It's so amazing. Well, my name is Fiston Muganda, originally from Congo, but currently living in Uganda as a refugee. I've been here for quite some good times, over 9 years now. But I actually registered as a refugee for 6 years. So the other past 3 years, I've been living on the streets in Uganda, trying and the like. Well, what I just shared with Robin is, Angel, you've said almost every content. So what I'm going to share with you here is only a simple story about my life and how this is pictured to the life I'm currently living here and what it has led me to do the work I'm doing.
Shout if you want me to put your pics up, Fiston.
Yes, please. I was going to ask you, do you mind putting the two pictures? Actually, one is enough. Thank you very much. Yes, to me, this picture reveals a lot of my childhood and also my adulthood. You know, being born and raised in Congo is an experience to our theme of today, education in conflict. And seeing this picture, I only have these memories of, you know, running under gun, you know, running under gun bullets and killings of people and torture, you know, murder, village burnouts, you know, people being slaughtered as animals. So when I have a look at this picture, I also think about my childhood. I also think about all the places and all the incidents where the war broke out and we had to run away, either be it from school or from home, from church, from anywhere. And I recently spoke to one of the friends who was asking me about my story, like my very deep story. I told him, look, speaking of conflict in my country, I wouldn't speak it like conflict in other countries. I've been in Uganda, I've been in Rwanda, I went to Burundi as well. But my country is country that suffers from a lot of things, which is more than just a conflict. I'm from a school that was never recognized. You know, partly I studied in a village, and in the city where I was living, we only had these 2 to 3 schools around the whole city where I was living back then. And the inner source of all the things it's related to emotional manipulations. To me, this is where all this starts from. In my country, we've only got one government, but more than 200 rebel groups. So, and all these are, you know, they are rebelling not to only fight against the government, but to have also emotional manipulations. And into this, you have ethnic conflict. Well, for those who don't know, Congo is a country which has more than 450 plus tribes, and almost every tribe, you know, fights for power. And the effects of education in my country, you know, into all the conflicts and the wars, the problems, the calamities, the destructions of everything they're related. I give them, you know, 3 classes. They're divided into 3 classes for the result. There's a destruction of infrastructure and resources needed to maintain functional education systems. There's the breakdown of communities, which probably leads to displacement that I'm currently living in. And of course, there's, to me, I call it a distribution of equity. I speak of a specific content of education that speaks of who learns what and what group of people, you know, learns a specific content of education. And this prevents so many like me from attending school. I'm only a school dropout. By the way, I only finished secondary school and I had to run away from my safety. So I aspire so much in psychology, even if I never went for these studies. But to me, whatever I do, whatever I act, whatever my behavior can be towards reacting over a problem is wired to the kind of life I lived, the kind of education I got, during the conflict. And believe it or not, what we are producing by now is the result of what we've always been taught, or what we were taught when we were young back then. And speaking on a collective approach, there's a lot of people, there's a lot of children who are not accessing school from now, and not just because, you know, the war is routinely happening in my country, but because of what education, what this conflict is wired to. For me, it's more of our background, it's more of tribes, it's more of nationality than just government. It feels so hurtful that the demand to good education, of course, education should be a place, or schools should be places where everyone has right to go, everyone is peaceful, stable, comfortable to go and learn. And what is happening is quite the opposite to me. And this is not just because there are bullets everywhere or everywhere. But from now, what we are suffering from is the emotional torture that we have. And in my country, speaking of the majority or speaking of minority, I consider, you know, I'm so much keenly looking into discrimination levels of classes, middle classes or underclasses, and upper classes of people. If there was a distributional and equity effect in terms of who accesses which type of education, then we probably are victims of what this is resulting in. I think I may have had a need to go study specific content or subject, but I'm limited to it, not because I'm not intelligent, or not because maybe my papa or my mama can't pay for it, but simply because there are restrictions. And so with lots of course, other torture I wouldn't love to share, but we have read the slides about Congo and more other countries that suffer from these problems. I ran away, like I fled my country and I came to Uganda, where I also faced another phase of education conflict with my education. I'm a secondary school diploma. I hold a diploma in high school, and I'm a university dropout. But there's no how I can integrate. There's no how I can integrate to an educational system in Uganda. It could be by lack of support, but more importantly, is by a conflicted education system in Uganda. Maybe because it's an English-speaking country and I'm from a French-speaking country. So there's a specific process I need to go through to be admitted. Also, what I found so much difficult is I could speak some English, of course. I could meet friends, of course. I could reach out for help, of course. And I would have people maybe willing to help, maybe pretending to help. And they would ask me, Fiston, do you have a secondary school diploma? And I'll be like, yes. What do you want to study? Psychology. They'll be like, oh, psychology. I'm sorry. I thought you're only going to learn the journalism. And the main cause was simply because I'm from a French-speaking country. And that gave maybe a proof of my inability to access school or to access education. So that said, I had to live on the street for years. Not only as a refugee, but as also a street refugee. And finally, I had to come to a refugee camp where I was welcomed and registered as a refugee. And then I started teaching. You know, I started my work teaching people English, more especially people can speak non-English speakers. Started teaching them some English. And statistically, the realization of my work was over 80% of the population where I was not, like, had no access to education. And I could, up to now, I can only sense, I can only feel the heaviness that the governments in African countries have to provide support or to make education system accessible to everyone. And this could be related to either government relationship or leadership problems. And so I had to keep teaching. So I taught, and there was this organization called Hello World that came in the camp to provide free access to learning tools. So they brought tablets and they would teach people. So I worked as a community support officer and teaching people how to use the internet for the benefits of their lives learning. And then I started doing it. But what seems to be a mystery in all the journey that I have and all the people I've been living with, or all the approaches that I have undertaken, but all the opportunities I had to look for to be able to have a chance to go back to school. The problem is positivity to me. And humanity. So, like, I think with a natural way of consideration, as a refugee, I should not be regarded as only someone who's vulnerable. I'd rather be regarded as someone who only fled the country for peace. And that said, I could be given a place to reintegrate, have a chance to go back to school. And that's what builds my future, right? So 80% of children in a refugee camp are not accessing school. I wonder what the future generation will be. I wonder, me who'd never gotten the chance to go to school or to progress with school simply because, I wonder what will be the future of my children tomorrow after tomorrow. Obviously, I'll be limited. I will suffer from the torture. I will suffer from the tendrils of my psychological problems. I will not only look at Uganda as Ugandan education system as an enemy, but I'll look back into my country. I say education and the government's conflict, this is the greatest enemy in my country. So, but with that said, I had to keep on learning as well, actually, with internet, and I've had a chance and the opportunity to keep exploring even without graduation, I kept learning and learning and learning. And I also started, I also worked with lots of other groups in, social activism. And of course, I also came up with a refugee initiative that works in improving livelihoods and providing opportunities to people. So in collaboration with Hello World has a digital education system that gives tools to refugees and the most marginalized societies, so they can have chance. At least they'll never go to school, but at least they have tools and they can learn online. And our work is we use entrepreneurship. Of course, we can't let down the youth, even if kids are the ones accessing the educational tools from Hello World. Also have youth who need to be trained, who need trainings in order to improve on their livelihoods. And that's where I also met Dali Boniface, who's a colleague and who is here with us today, who I'm also going to invite to speak of his experience. I met Boniface before the work and we shared a lot, and he's been here for quite a long time. And to me, it was an inspiration to start looking at life in a bright new angle and maybe accept the diversities that I'm facing. So with that said, thank you. And Boniface, please welcome to air your opinions.
Thank you so much, Tristan. Yeah, my name's of Ndambaj Boniface. I'm a refugee here in Nachi Valley, and I'm a Rwandan refugee. I've so far spent 27 good years in refugee settlement, and I've been in 8 settlements in East Africa, that is Burundi, Tanzania, and finally here. I started becoming a refugee when I was 3 years, and now I'm 30. So I've been a refugee for 27 years. I remember when I was in Tanzania, I had started school, and due to transition, because the other side were studying in French, coming to Uganda, we are entering a country that is English-speaking country, and we're like, you have promoted and then you start afresh. So I also joined primary in Uganda and Nakiva refugee settlement. Then with time, I dropped out of school because no finances. I didn't have any sponsor to support me in my education. But since I had the heart of attending school, I kept on dropping out, going back to school, getting well-wishers supporting me, dropping me like that. So the school that I was supposed to finish maybe in 16 years, I finished the school. I mean, to get a degree, the first degree, I spent almost 25 years to get just one degree. So when it comes to refugee life, it's really hard for most of us to attain decent education, because I remember the other individuals that I grew up with, most of them didn't make it to get education. They dropped out of school when some of them were in primary 5, others were in primary 2, others were discouraged after joining secondary. So you find the whole community over thousands of people, just 2 or 3 students have managed to make it, getting at least a diploma. It is even really worse when it comes to Rwandans, because we are ever scared, because of this forced repatriation programs everywhere. You're here today, tomorrow they are chasing you, and you find yourself moving from here to there, and sometimes some of students really fail to continue with their studies because of such as challenges. And I remember when I was at the university, I started from Komba University here in Uganda, and I was the student leader. So by that time, it's when I picked an interest of supporting my fellow refugees, and I could organize outreaches, community outreaches, and then we contribute because we were under a scholarship called the DAFI, that is given by Window International Uganda and the Germany embassy. So we could just solicit some few allowances that we could get, and then we go and support our fellow refugees in different refugee settings, where we could either buy books, buy pens, and then go with them to such schools in settlements, and even motivate them to love school, those ones who could get sponsors to support their education. It's really challenging when it comes to refugee life, where people really feel like, what next? Even if after school, you finish school and, the refugees, there is this glass ceiling where you can't break through. For instance, when it comes to employment, job employment, you find you have a degree, but there is a certain position you are entitled to. You can't probably become a manager. You can't become even the caseworker. You just become an interpreter. You just become a cleaner, office attendant. That's all. You just get few peanuts, which can't even support probably a relative or siblings to also continue the school. Currently, I'm working with an organization called Now and Tomorrow, because I completed my university in 2019. So I was like, I couldn't remain in town, because I feel like my fellow refugees should be also supported. I work with Now and Tomorrow as the capacity building officer, and I work closely with the refugee-led community-based organization that provide services, different services here in Nachiva Refugees Settlement. And this organization also supports school readiness children between the age of 5 and 12. So we prepare them, and then after preparing them in non-formal education, we enroll them to government schools or UNHCR funded schools, where we keep on making follow-ups to make sure that they remain in school for at least a period of time. And currently, I'm also volunteering with a project called the Hard Dreams Count, that is training young girls how to develop websites. And currently, this is the second month. We are entering the second month. However, there are very many challenges. You find this is a project funded by a refugee. You don't have resources to finance the project. You just begin with your 2 laptops, probably, or 3 from a friend, and then you start such a project to make sure you support literally. You have to support your community, to give back to the community. So education in conflict, when it comes to the refugee setting, it's really hard for refugees to make any move. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Dalip. Thank you. That's so between Fiston and Boniface, Fiston is 25. I mean, it's just what a remarkable set of stories, and these are the stories we need to hear, because it's really easy to other whole groups of people and just these miraculous human beings. And I'm sure that you are not alone either. So perhaps we can have just one or two questions and engagements. I do want us to go into some breakaway rooms, because I think there's been a huge amount of input and some really rich thinking, and it would be good for us to have an opportunity to be in conversation together. We're going to break into breakaway rooms of 5 or 6 people. But before we do that, anybody who would like to just give feedback, share a comment, give a hug, whatever it might be, to yeah. So BD, I see your hand is up.
Thank you so much for giving me this short opportunity. I think my question will go to both Boniface and Fiston, whoever may need to take this. I would say it's a quite good narrative that you are giving us. I salute your experiences, your positivity, which has led you to succeed to some point. But I was wondering, if you are given a position, either Fiston or Boniface, to manage the refugee camps in either part of Africa, what could you do differently that would help the people in the camp to get better education and not to go through your path which you have gone through? Thank you so much.
This one is directed to Fiston and...
yes, either Fiston or Boniface. What could you do, one simple thing or one thing that you think could be done, which is not done in this refugee camp, to ensure that other people don't go through the path that you have gone through in terms of accessing education, probably finances? It's a bit wide, but what do you think can be done?
Thank you so much for asking this question. I've actually put in some words in the chat. I said the reconstruction or construction of more schools will never solve this problem. I think what is needed the most in our current African educational system is a new design or a redesign of education system that goes alongside, financial stability. We need economic contribution. What is going on with the system of our education? One thing I'm just thinking now is, I now remember, look, maybe if we had peace also in my country, okay, peace with ourselves financially, and had peace with other tribes, of course, peace as human beings in a country. Maybe maybe I wouldn't have lost my family. Maybe I wouldn't have been far from my family 10 years, 9 years, 11 years. So if no peace, if there's economic instability, even if we construct, even if we reconstruct, even if we keep constructing new schools, that's not the recovery. What needs to be retrieved is the nature, the natural aspect of what education is meant to be. It shouldn't be a base of any violence whatsoever, which is the case in Africa now. And what I'm speaking is not a research. What I'm speaking is honestly what I have been and I am living. How come I really need 10 years to be a PhD holder in Congo, and only 5 years to be a PhD holder in Uganda. That still is a problem. How come management, maybe project, whatever costs, is $5,000 in Uganda and $10,000 in Congo? Speaking of examples. So, thank you. I think I've got this threaded conversation, threaded considerations of what I think education is meant to be, or, you know, contribution of the better world that everyone deserves. And also the aspects of education in this today's world. There's a collapse of education system. I'm sorry. Thank you so much.
No, not at all. I had thought you were finished, but as you're speaking, I just want to invite you. What I would like to ask for you and Boniface, and I'm sure that you have possibly done this elsewhere, but both WISE and ICSI have calls out at the moment for papers. If you guys would be willing to write exactly as you've spoken, not the theory, the experience of what is required. You know, it would be an amazing thing to submit. So if you're keen to do that, please do.
Robin,
sorry, could you repeat that, Robin? I think I've lost it.
That's okay. I was just saying that two of the biggest education affiliate groups are going to be running conferences in the next few months. And if you and Boniface would be interested and would like to, please write a piece so that we can submit it on your behalf. From the experiential perspective, we would really like to be able to do that.
Yeah. Sorry, Robin.
Yep.
Just one, probably 3 seconds. Yes, so probably you can get in touch with Robin Fiston and see how we can arrange this together later. But before Chakri has to say what he has to say, has also written something for you and Boniface on the chat box. And just to get back to the question by Bidi, thank you, Bidi, for intervening. But ideally speaking, we shouldn't have any refugee camps. Ideally speaking, yes. So there shouldn't be any refugee camp. Human beings should be welcome everywhere they go. Yes, but we have we have refugee camps. Generally speaking, when we design someone as refugee, well, they were labeled as refugees because we want people to know about their vulnerability and to provide them with the help that they need. But actually, a word just dawned on my head now. We sometimes, or most of the time, these people are treated as not as refugees, but they are treated as refugees.
Yeah, I think I want to contribute.
Yes, very quickly. Thank you.
Briefly, just like a minute. I agree with you, Abdulaziz, that we don't need to have refugee camp, but I guess conflicts are present in the world. And although we have negative part of refugees, but there's also some positive part of refugees. These people should be taken to a place before they're relocated to better places so that their life can go in terms of that conflict.
Yes.
So, and then I think I borrow the idea for Robin that their experience and what can be done can be a good research work or something that could help many people. Wishing you all the best, Fiston and Boniface. Thank you so much.
Chakri, do you have anything to say?
I have Chakri's question. He's asked me to ask because his internet's not good. But we are going to come back and have another discussion group after Wycliffe speaks. We want to go into breakaway rooms for some time because I think people have a lot that's in their heads and it would be good to have an opportunity to discuss it together. So the question from Chakri really, and please if you could answer it in the chat. Fiston, I know we've discussed this briefly, and I know you have applications in a number of places trying to get into your psychology degree because this aspect of bringing real experience to real understanding of what it's going to take, what people's experience are is important. But the question was, how difficult is it for yourselves, the two of you specifically, but for people in these conditions to move? So where opportunities do become available to move and to access opportunities in other countries, how difficult is that movement? What is paperwork like? So I'm going to ask you, because I think we need to have this opportunity to speak. I'm going to ask if you could answer that in the chat group and hold it also for when we come back and we're speaking later. And what we're going to do now is move everybody into chat rooms. I'm going to break you all out into rooms of 5 or 6 people. We're going to have 15 minutes in our breakaway rooms. Please take a moment, not long, your name, your surname, where your feet rest on this earth. And then if you could really just feel free to discuss what is it that this conversation has evoked for you. What do you have that's in your own space that's similar, or what is it that you've realized? Try and create adequate space in the tiny 15 minutes for everybody to have an opportunity to speak, please. And yeah, so welcoming you into the breakaway rooms. I will stay in the main session, and once everybody is allocated, we will create an opportunity for me to jump into 1 or 2 as well, because I'm really keen to participate in these conversations with you also. Okay, so the breakaway rooms are going to be opening. Please help each other if there are any language problems, and please also somebody just keep an eye on equality of speech. Cheers then. Okay, if anybody is...
I've seen them firsthand. I remember I grew up in an urban area, but at some point after my secondary education, I went back to my rural area, and then I saw the struggle people go through with education. You know, kids who are unable to attend school because they can't pay maybe just $1 for exams and stuff like that for primary education, because the parents here have to choose between feeding a child and taking them to school, and I felt like that, like that was unfair. It was just so unfair to choose between giving education to your child and maybe feeding them, because of the poverty levels at this point. So after my secondary education, I actually volunteered in one of the primary schools there. I was teaching for free. And during my time there, I saw how kids would drop out because they couldn't pay exam fee or pay for a little money for the teachers that were volunteering. And then they ended up, getting married at a younger age, increased crime, illiteracy level. So when I got a chance to work for a nonprofit that had a vision for impact, and I had them start this project where they wanted to give back to the community by using their large network to get funds that would actually take these kids to school. I was very excited, and that is why, that is part of the reason why I was really touched when I saw this advert on Facebook, just to come and hear what people have seen around the education factor in Africa and in the world. It's nerve-wracking, and so at some point it's even sad to hear some of the stories that people have gone through. Now, I'm a salesperson, and while I have you here, I'll just take a minute to make a pitch. So take a minute to make a pitch. So the challenge is these people, most of the kids.
Oh, we want to hear the pitch.
Yeah.
Put your video off if you can still hear us, and maybe it'll be a bit better. I'll actually try. Good. Try. Let's see if we can hear you. So while we wait for him to come back, Nadia, did you speak a little? Yes.
I'm on mute. Okay. Yes, I spoke before Lisa.
Maybe Angel
but-
then, before we get ripped.
Yes, Angel.
I actually have a burning question
Go ahead.
that I don't know the answer to. I'm wondering whether we need to rethink what we consider to be the basics in education or in schooling. And if what I'm interested in doing is exploring whether we could start with the basics as to be what an individual needed to learn to thrive in place where they were born. And so that we wouldn't have to have quite so much migration and refugee. If we didn't lose the traditional knowledge of how to survive right where you are and thrive right where you are, then that could become the basics of what people needed to learn. And then what we've colonized as the basics of reading, writing, and arithmetic would be the second, if you think of it concentric circles, the second place out of importance in schooling. But if you're living in a situation where you don't have electricity, you don't have books, you don't have clean water, extreme poverty kinds of situations, maybe reading, writing, and arithmetic isn't the first thing you need. I don't know the answer because I don't live in that situation, but I'm very curious as to whether that is worth
Absolutely,
thinking about.
Lisa. And I think it's that question, what do we need to learn? We've got trapped in a cycle of what education is, and actually what do we need to learn for our context that's really, really useful, and how could we learn it in different ways from what we traditionally think is the way it has to be done. I'm so sorry to rip us out. It's always my fault when people get ripped out of conversations. Anyway.
It was wonderful to be together.
Absolutely.
We'll stay in touch. We already exchanged our emails. So, and Jordan, I'll find you on LinkedIn or something.
Jordan, put your email in the chat before when we get back.
Very quickly.
Awesome. Yes. Thank you very much. So this is the okay.
Awesome. So welcome back. I'm sorry, as per usual, to have ripped everybody out of their conversations.
Yes, you did it again. Yes, you did it again, Robin. Okay.
Sorry.
So everyone engaging, and all of a sudden, okay, Robin shows up at the top of the screen. 1 second.
You know, Chakri said we need 10 hours, and I think we need 10 hours for such sessions because Chakri, we are seriously going to consider your request.
Robin, that's why I said 10 hours.
Exactly. We need 10 hours. So guys, I know in the room that I was in for even the brief period there were amazing conversations. Please, can I encourage us all, like the thoughts, the questions, what's come up in those spaces, things that have triggered for you, please put them in the chat group so that we can kind of hold them somehow. What I would like to do now is just give Wycliffe an opportunity also to share his phenomenal story and the work that he does in Kenya. And after that, we're going to open up the whole space to be in conversation together and to have some questions and thinking and just to be in conversation together before we close at past. So Wycliffe, over to you and your team.
Wow, thank you so much. Maybe if you can, first of all, I'll just introduce myself. I'm Baraza Wycliffe. I come from Kenya. Most people who are in Wycliffe, that's the pronunciation. And I think for me, today I've been empowered a lot because we have many stories. When you just listen about them, you're being blown out. And thank you so much. Thank you so much, Angela, and thank you so much, Fiston. You don't know how you have encouraged me where I was and where I am today. Just a brief introduction about me.
I'm Baraza Wycliffe. I come from Kenya, and I'm originally from western part of Kenya called Busia. And maybe on my side, just on the topic about education and conflict, for me, I've been indirectly affected, not just direct. I haven't been a refugee, though I might be, I have been a refugee once. I was born, maybe if you can go to the next slide, that just explain about my story. This slide explains my story, and that's the journey when I was born. I was born in a very happy environment, like very happy parents. After a period of time, I had to move from Kenya to Uganda because I had lost my parents. And I never had an advantage at the age of 2, actually. I had my aunt. And when I went to Uganda, that's the period when Rwanda had the war, which was in Rwanda. And my aunt was taken to Rwanda as a UN peacemaker. She was killed, and now the husband to my aunt, I saw it was a curse to people dying. My mom died because of me when she was giving birth, and then my dad died at the age of 2 when he was with me. At the same time, when I went to Uganda, caused my aunt dying. Therefore, I was back to the street. I was forced to go to the street. Therefore, that's why at 5 years, that's why you see the 5. I had a humble life with my parents at 5, with people, 5 years. For when I was at 5, I had to go to the streets of Uganda. For those people who are in Uganda, they know a place called Gatanga slum. And it was so difficult in the street. I was in the street for 7 good years. I never had education for those 7 years, but I thank so much. Sometimes this is what I always thank Uganda, because that time in 2002 and 3, that's the time they introduced free education. And I had to, because when I was in the street, there's one sound which came in my life, like from my aunt before she went. She said to me, put your life into education. And that's what I was looking for. I don't have any person to help. I didn't have anyone in my life. Therefore, when I was there for good 7 years, the first 2 years, I was in a group, because when in the street, there are 2 things. It's either you are being protected by those, by the elder street guys who will send you and just go and beg for them, and you must come with around $10 every day. If you don't do that, you'll be tortured. Therefore, I had to move away from doing that. I started because I wanted to go to school. For one day when I went to one of the school, I was in Tata, and I was just away from one of the school in Uganda because I was a street kid. And I came back and I realized that, because I was in Tata, what can I do? I started washing trailers, washing a trailer at, that time I was being given like 200 shilling Uganda money after washing, doing everything. For that time I had to just push myself. I started carrying water at the age of 8. I was carrying a 10 liter I was carrying like 10 liters for within the street, just to go and fetch water for small hotels so that they can pay. And that's how I went back to school. But my school was so difficult. I was reading, that time in Uganda, most young kids were reading under the trees. Therefore, I had to sit away and then come back when now they go for break, just come and read what they have written. That one and everything. For when I was there, I decided to, I had a sound of my mom, my aunt always telling me, you know what, you're not from Kenya, but you're in Uganda. You're not from Uganda. But he was talking about something called Busia. For when I was washing one of the trailer, someone mentioned about that. Therefore, I had to, okay, I need to relocate from this place. And I thank so much those people. Therefore, when I was now at my age of 12, at the time I came back to Busia as a street kid. So I finished there 1 year. And good luck, there's someone who knew my dad, and I looked like my dad. For they kept on coming, and I was washing for them the vehicles and everything. And that's the time when I had to meet now my grandma who came to the street when she was at 77. For now, my grandma is 103 years. She was around at 80 to 90 years, between 80 something. She's now at 103. And I think one thing I can say when I was in the street is that the time I was there and there was census in Uganda, I feel so bad today that chicken, TVs, cows, they were counted to the budget of Uganda, but the street kids were not counted. For most governments in Africa, they abandoned street kids. From there, when I came now from school, I remember I also lost one of my friends because I never had Panadol, just to give that person, one of my friend who was a street kid. I have some torture. I was tortured by police, done everything when I was very young, being tortured at 6 years, 7 years, 8 years. Therefore, it's just because there was a conflict somewhere in Rwanda where I lost someone who was to take care of me. But now, good luck, I came back to home to my grandma. When I was there now, when I don't know how even to speak English, Swahili at the time. When I went to school, I never had money. I never had anything. My grandma was like, okay, someone who is 80, between me and my grandma who needs to help another person. For it was so difficult on my side. I have dropped out of school more than 8 times. Now, if you see now the 8 there, dropped out of school more than 8 times. But I had a chance to go to an orphanage school where I did a very incredible work, built a school, lost a school, the same point. And just to make a story short somehow, now I realize that there are many young people who are passing the same situation I passed through 7 years in the street. But how could I help those young people to move away from the street? I can't go and move them from the street and then bring them. Therefore, what I realized is that I need to help those who are still there in their homes. We have today, maybe in Kenya, we have many families which are living under $1. They live under $1. They can't afford to take their kids to school, even just paying 100 shilling, which is $1, for these kids to go to school. For what I did is I started helping when I was very young, at the age of 13. I started, I was doing arts. For example, people who are in Kenya, you can know, like, if you're having your hens and chicken, something just, it was a basket to cover hens at night. Therefore, I was doing that and I was selling them at $3. When I was in class 8, I sponsored around 20 kids, myself and 20 kids. Therefore, that's where my heart, because I saw those kids who were also suffering the way I suffered, but I took that responsibility at myself. And from there, I joined the secondary school. I passed very well in that secondary school. I was in an orphanage school and joined university, dropped out. Now I had a chance to go to African Leadership University. When I went there, this is where I met one of my colleagues who is called Tabitha, who is my co-founder of COSI Africa. And that's where the story starts on how we have been helping young kids. And I think before COSI Africa, we had something called $1 back to school. The reason $1 back to school, it means we want to take young kids. We have many kids who are dropping out of school in Kenya because they can't afford $1 just to pay for the exam. And I remember when, for people who are in Kenya, I'm the one who advocated for the ban of disco matanga in the whole country. Therefore, when I was doing that, disco matanga is where loud music during funerals. When I was doing that, I went to one of the school and I met 50 kids going back home. They were sent home and I was asking them, what's going on? They said, you have been sent home because we can't afford to pay for our exam. And I said, how much is the exam? And in fact, they told me it's just 50 shillings, which is $50. And because I loved so much going back to school, I loved how school can change you. I went with those 50 kids to school, paid their school fee, their exam money. And what happened is the school had exams, they gave them exam, but they wanted money. And I was like, wow, why can't we make this? Why can't I make this as something? That's why I started $1 back to school campaign. And the $1 back to school campaign has sponsored more than 2,000 young kids across Kenya. And it's not something I've been going to get money outside Africa, outside Kenya. I think in my life, I think that the community within Africa can educate their own people. I've been raising from my friends, I've been raising from those people who have heard about my impact and who know about my vision, just to push that, to ensure that the young people across the villages go back to school. I think the main foundation for me, which I stand, is if we can afford to change the mindset of these young kids at the low level, which is now education, that's where we can start with even solving the conflict levels and everything. Now, for what we stand with at COSI Africa, we ignite candles. And maybe if you can go to the next slide. Now, this is, if you see that picture, it resonates with who we are at COSI Africa. One thing is, our main slogan is to unleashing the African young mindset, young kid. COSI Africa is on a mission to build a new generation of young leaders who are problem solvers through education, leadership, and mentorship, who will in turn transform the face of the community. If you see that picture, we have one candle. That one candle at the center is the COSI Africa. For us, we want to light, we're going to light 4 or 5 or 8 people. Now, the people who are lighting the candle, we need them also to light other candles, the way you're seeing those candles outside there. I think when we can light 1,000 candles today at COSI Africa, the 1,000 candles are going to light millions of candles across the world. And for me, there's a lot I've been passing through, but there's a lot that has taught me to be an empathetic person than being a sympathetic person. And the world today, for me, what I can say is, it does not take a lot for you to take someone to school. And just to say something, I work with Impact Africa, and Impact Africa Network is a non-profit which works with young people. And I was so proud that we are partnering with Impact Africa for people who are in Kenya. We are having a campaign, buy a hoodie, take a kid to school for 1 year. You're buying one hoodie at 3,500, which is $35, and you're taking one kid to school in primary the whole year. The same time, you're so proud to wear that hoodie, but at the same time, there's a proud inside you, I'm making an impact somewhere. Therefore, on my side, I thank so much. For example, I'll say on this, like in this platform, 90% of my life has been impacted by women. And the women who are in this room, I appreciate you a lot. And for COSI Africa, we are also working one-on-one to ensure like we give more young girls outside there opportunity. And we have a lot of things because, you know, as a non-profit, we need to understand how sustainability works. We are working with 3 schools, 4 schools, a program called EduGreen. We plant, we show them on how to plant trees. The kids we sponsor, we show them how to plant trees, on how to do seed beds. And when they plant, for example, one school had around 5,000 trees. And I had to pitch to one of the company. They bought those trees, every tree at 50 shilling, $0.50. Therefore, when that money comes, what we do is half of the money pays their school fee and half of the money is being invested for their future education. Therefore, that's how our sustainability, we have different programs. Therefore, from here, I'll just take the opportunity just to invite my co-founder, who is Tabitha, and she's an incredible person. I met her at LU when we were in school, African Leadership University. She has been the backbone of what we have been doing together. Maybe if Tabitha, you are here, you can go on.
Right. Thank you so much, Wycliffe. And I think he's over amplified the work I do. It's all mostly Wycliffe. But I know I've worked with Wycliffe for, I think, the last 5 years. And every time I hear his story, it's always incredible every other time. But my name is Tabitha Nyariki. I'm Kenyan, but I'm currently based in Glasgow, Scotland. I live and work here. And I'm a psychologist by training. So I'm very happy and glad to hear that Fiston wants to go into psychology, because as I say, we need many more Africans in psychology and mental health. But myself and Wycliffe are unlikely friends, I like to say, because we met at very interesting circumstances, but we didn't know we had the same vision. And our vision was to educate and transform Africa and transform the young people in Africa. So as he said, we met in Mauritius a couple of years ago, very ambitious young people with very, very big dreams that didn't seem possible. And I remember the first time Wycliffe shared his story with me, we were having dinner outside our student halls. And I was challenged because in my whole life, I've never faced what Wycliffe has had to face. I always tell people that I'm a very privileged African because I've not had to go through conflict or trouble with education or any other sort of things of the stories we've had today. But through my life, my mom has been an advocate for literacy in Africa. She worked and helped Southland Sudan a couple of years ago, and areas of conflict all her life. For I think over 30 years, she's celebrating now working literacy. So I've seen firsthand the importance of education, and I grew up knowing the importance of education. So meeting Wycliffe was almost the point where everything lit up for me, knowing what I wanted to do and help people like Wycliffe and other people within the Kenyan community access education that I was very lucky to have accessed during my time. So as I said, we started $1 back to school, and it was just a dream. It was a campaign that we were hoping to run. And then it grew and grew legs, and we decided to start COSI Africa, which he so gladly explained really well through our projects with EduGreen and $1 back to school and COSI Tech. So many things we're trying to do just to make sure that children in Kenya particularly get the access to education and quality education, because there is education, but it needs to be quality education for you to be able to grow and be able to impact other people. So I will not speak too much because I've been challenged today by so many of these stories, from Fiston to Boniface to Angel to Wycliffe. It's been fantastic to listen to your stories, and we just look forward to transforming education and hopefully have positive stories about what this conversation has come from. But I'll just post in our website as well in the chat once I'm done speaking, for anyone who wants to know more about what we do and want to join our campaigns in any other things. But thank you so much, guys.
Thank you, Tabitha. Andrew, would you like to just invite questions, comments, thoughts? So Andrew, I'm going to give that to you too.
Yes, I invite questions, but before I invite questions, I would like to ask a question to our special guests from Kenya, from Uganda, and from Cameroon. And maybe they may respond now before the session is over, or they may respond later because they have our contacts. And the question is this: what do you tell the governments or international bodies out there as it regards to providing education? So sorry for that. So let me repeat the question. What do you tell the governments or international bodies outside there as it regards to providing education to the displaced students as a result of conflicts? Angela shared great insights Wycliffe has shared great insights together with the Fiston. So what would you like? Probably you can use this opportunity. What would you like to tell the governments or international bodies outside there as it regards to providing education to the displaced students as a result of conflicts? You may answer the question now, or you can answer it later because you have our contacts. And now I invite questions. Liza Loop, do you have a question which you can ask or your contribution?
No, I'm just sitting here in awe. I don't think I have a single question that I can ask. I can ask 100 questions. Maybe one of the things that's at the top of my mind now has to do with what's basic in education, is learning how to thrive in place where you are. Perhaps for many people more important than reading, writing, and arithmetic. I don't know the answer, and I think it will differ for different people. But for the folks we're talking about who are living in extreme poverty or who are in conflict and have to migrate to survive, maybe there are things that are more important to learn that we don't think of as school subjects. That's what I'm thinking about. I don't even know if it's a question.
Thank you, Liza. Thank you for contributing to this. Andrew, are you back with us?
Yes, I'm back. I've had some issues with my machine, with my laptop, but I'm back. Thank you, Liza, for your contribution. Do you have another question? I saw Kati Sithole had a contribution a while ago, but before we go to, maybe we can go to Kati Sithole, then after that we go to Oruna Abdullahi.
And Michelle as well.
And Michelle. So in that order, we start with Kati, going to Haruna, then Michelle. In that order. Kati, you are muted, yes.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much. I don't have a contribution, just thank you very much for the presentations. They are mind-provoking, you know. You will ask yourself, what is it that I'm doing to change or to contribute to education, you know? So I really appreciate all the presenters. Thank you very much.
This is a contribution in itself. Your presence is a contribution in itself. And when you're saying thank you, you're saying thank you to these people, it's a contribution as well, you know? And, you know, it's the feeling of many people here. Who is this young lady who said, yeah, it's Tabitha who said, I always share how I'm privileged. Yes, I feel the same, you know, despite the difficulties I've had as a kid going to school, but it was somehow safe. Okay, so the conflict, there wasn't a conflict. There was violence of a different kind in my schools. Yes, we were faced with violence from teachers because they wanted to teach us, but they thought that violence is a very good way to teach us. Of course, this has led to some psychological scars that are in us forever. But when you hear these stories, as Liza said, you relate in a way, but given like limit, like this is way beyond what we have experienced. Yes. So our presence with them here and our listening to them, and as Liza said, and other people like Shakri and others in the chat box, amplifying the voices of these people beyond today's session, amplifying their voices beyond today's session. I said it when we were preparing the session with Robin and Andrew. We all said this with Fiston and the others. This session is not for this session, okay? It's not for Africa Voices Dialogue. It's not for the 47 people who were with us. Now we have 37 people, including myself. It's not. It should go beyond us. Yes, we should. It should not just be part of research papers, white papers, as Liza said. We have to take these to every place we can take this to. Yes, it's like a story. You share it with everyone you meet. There are people out there who are suffering, and it's the responsibility of every one of us. It's not the responsibility of one government. It's not the responsibility of one United Nation. It's the responsibility of each single person here and each single person out there in this world. I'm sorry, I will take 2 more minutes, but I was in an interview with a gentleman today who shared his experience with me as struggling to get a higher education. And we said something important. He said that, okay, when I think of myself he is from Florida. He said, I don't think of myself as if I'm in Florida, I think of myself as someone from Florida. If I'm in another country, I will think of myself as, if I am in Kenya, I will think of myself as Kenyan. If I am in Texas, I will think of myself as Texan. If I am in Morocco, I will think of myself as Moroccan. Yes? We should not feel that we belong to only one place. We belong everywhere. And if we don't do anything, we as single individuals, we can shift things within our spaces. And when we shift, so you push, and you are going to, okay, make everyone at least aware that there is a situation out there that should be dealt with. And it is urgent. It is not a situation that requires years, come on. And we've been experiencing these for years. Fortunately, we have people like Wycliffe, we have people like Haruna, we have people like Fiston, we have people like all of these people who have suffered a lot, but they still see the positive side of this, and they struggle to help others get out of these conflict zones and get a better life. We are so fortunate to have them, but they have to be fortunate to have us. So that's the question they ask. Are they fortunate because we are with them? We are fortunate because they are with us, and they are struggling, and they're doing their best. So what are we doing? So that's the major question we should ask. Thank you, Kati. We move on to Haruna.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I'm very glad to be in this platform. And, you know, despite all this problem of security issues, of education issues, because education is a challenge today, we are trying our best to make sure that kids have educations. But we are in a context where instability, insecurity, terrorism is growing. We will have, maybe you will promote educations, but at the end of the day, those people with degree, with diploma, they will have struggle to have jobs. And that can be another source of frustration because you struggle your life having a diploma, and you will struggle again for decades having a job to feed your family. So for me, I think this is now a period of a moment for us not to focus only on education. Yes, education, but education through income generation activities, training, mechanic, carpentry, painting. All these things can help youths to have something concrete in hand, that they don't need to wait for a government, to wait for the UN to bring them support. They can work as a technician, as a mechanic, as electricians, as, you know, all this speciality that you can have on the ground to work and to feed their families. What I'm trying to do is like I'm identifying youths that are living in the streets. And my effort is to see how I can help them to have like their driving lessons. Is a diploma having a driving lessons. So if they have driving lessons now, is how to get like opportunity to have taxi or something for them and that can allow them. I'm very glad sometimes if I'm circulating in the country, in Niamey, here in the capital, when they see me, those youths, they came through me, that, because I'm just supporting one of them to change having a driver license, having a taxi, and then the rest of the youth that are like in the streets, maybe he can just opt one of them and support him to have taxi. And that is concrete things you can think. But I'm very glad to be here, and thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. And you opened my eyes on a lot of things that I will see how to experiment in my country. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Aruna. And before we invite Michelle, I would like to assure you, through Africa Voices Dialogue, we shall organize a follow-up session. This is not the end, but we shall have another session, probably sometime early next year. We shall communicate the dates. Michelle, please.
Yeah, the issue we are talking about is so important, but education is very, very much important to educate skills of the 21st century. As Haruna said, that everybody can have job. And I think the job is not a problem, that we will find a job because there's a lot of things to do. But I want to consider a very important issue from my experience of working with refugee children. I got this experience working with Iraqi children, refugees in Syria. And what this experience, it's a lot of wants these children have because they experience that and they experience a lot of hard time. So I think the most important is, before we think about teaching math, mechanics, electronics, to healing these wants. Because if we don't heal these wants, we cannot achieve anything else, you know? Because first of all, we need to really heal mind of these children so they can really be part of the community again, you know? And this is very important. So I do it throughout storytelling, and throughout, like, stories are very powerful tools to heal and to exchange experiences. So, but of course, we have to maybe to make some actions, you know, to really to transform our discussion, which is so important, to some, and what Abdelaziz said also, you know, to make something going follow up of that.
Thank you so much, Michal. I think that is such an appropriate point to end on. You know, yes, education is important. Actually, the human being is important first. How do we really support each other as human beings? The rest will come. So we are at the end of our time, 5 minutes over, in fact. And we will keep the room open for people to continue in conversation, but I know many people, it's a long time, 2.5 hours, it does fly, but I know many people do have to jump off. What we just want to do before we close is let you know what our next upcoming, session will be on, and give Odunayo a chance to quickly introduce the topic. So we will, on the 27th of November, that's the tentative date that we've set, have a conversation about alternative education models for Africa. And I think, you know, this builds a lot on what we've just said. What is appropriate education? How do we find contextually relevant solutions for this continent? So Odunayo, I'm going to give over to you. Just a minute, please. We'll play those who need to go out with some music. Odunayo.
Okay. Am I showing on the screen or on my laptop? Okay. Oh yeah. So hi everyone. Thank you so much for sharing your stories. I am very energized and inspired by the passion and stories that has been shared today. Thank you for igniting some fire, real fire in us. So my name is Mayo Aliu, and I am the founder, and for a few years I have worked with amazing educators across rural and marginalized communities to develop various alternative learning models for our different contests in Africa. So in the next session, we will be having some of these educators, working in rural communities, working in slums, working in, various contests, we have some educators working in conflict zones, and we'll be looking at the kind of education models that they are implementing to ensure that children in these various contexts keep having access to education. And, the conversation, we, move beyond the regular traditional model of education, beyond school system. We hope to look at how we can improve the school system. The way our traditional education is today, can it serve every children, like we have said in this meeting so far? How can we tweak this? How can we customize this? How can we have tailored education system for the different kind of children that we are working with? So we hope to have all of this conversation. What is the future of education? What kind of education can really solve a problem, in a particular context? So I'm inviting all of you. I hope to see all of you here. And we are going to make sure to have, a very diverse team of educators to share their particular story, their journey so far in creating these different kind of models. So thank you very much. I look forward.
Thank you, Urunayo. We can't wait. Every session just feels more exciting than the last one. So we are overwhelmed by, we're just overwhelmed by what this continent has to offer. Gee, there are amazing human beings worldwide, but we live on this continent, so it's good for us to see. So Aziz has asked, for those who can, please put your videos on so that we can just have one screenshot of this session with us together as the Africa Voices Dialogue family, and big smiles, big waves, pop a heart on your screen, something that you want to have. Aziz, tell us when you're done.
Thank you. 4 screenshots, and I have already shared some screenshots on my Facebook page. I would like to thank all of you who have attended. We have you as a family, as family members of Africa Voices Dialogue. We're so glad to have had you. And of course, we feel that you belong to us and we belong to you. So please keep in touch with each other, keep in touch with us, and try to reflect on how we can learn from each other and how we can help each other be better and improve the experiences of the kids of tomorrow. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Abdulaziz, are you moving?
Of course, we need to thank those people who have contributed to this session today. Yes, we thank them so much. They are the heroes of today. So all of them, each one in his name and in her name, thank you very much for coming and contributing and sharing and volunteering to share your experiences with everyone here. And of course, I'm sure that we are going to, as I said, amplify your voices in the best way possible. Thank you so much. Thanks a lot, my friends.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Mr. Aziz, are you moving or you have like 2 minutes together?
No, we're going to play.
Yes, we can.
We're going to play some music. So those people who need to drop off.
We're going to have a song now, and we can stay in the room, you and I, Haruna, if you want. No problem.
Okay.
So anybody who wants to stay can stay. We're going to play some music for 2 or 3 minutes so that people who need to drop off can do so without feeling guilty about it. And those who want to dance can dance. The music. Because we have to dance. It's part of our tradition.
Yes.
So Fiston is ready to go.
Yes.
Oh, sorry. I just want to share sound quickly and make sure that it's sharing because it doesn't look like it's sharing.
No, I can't hear you, Robin. Ah, there you go.
Kanjindin, man from the love we lay one. Venture one goes away. We proud of who we are. Tonight, venture one goes away. We proud of who we are.
Me a wandang bagalmo, and a wandang jang manjongo, my brother. I find the bus pull up Japan, we go still chop out my sister.
When they see me coming, Ike la wagon la boys, money for me, follow me. Turula musika kilo wikisa, ishana, cherere. There's the one side, can you hear the trouble sound?
Can't man from the love we lay one. Venture one goes away. We proud of who we are. There's it tutti nay. There's it tough nay. Venture one goes away. We proud of who we are. Can't man from the love we lay one. Venture one goes away. We proud of who we are. There's it tutti nay. There's it tough nay. Venture one goes away. We proud of who we are. Lenzi ganze jengle no. For vine constancy. Ven wa we are watching go. For vine constancy. Lenzi ganze jengle no. For vine constancy. Ven wa we are watching go. For vine constancy.
Yeah, I'll sing some. If you know say you be proud of your beginning, make it the shine your light. Just follow me, oh, follow me, oh, follow me, shine your light. Le bangbo le wa, bibi nyok tenya tenta, bibi nyok tenya tenta.
Come in upon this one again. I be proud by me licky girl, yeah. I'm proud of who I am, yeah. Step up 1, 2, yeah. Wafu samo, yeah. Bangante bangjung, yeah. Genta asin, yeah.
Can't man from the love we lay one. Venture one goes away. We proud of who we are. There's it tutti nay. There's it tough nay. Venture one goes away. We proud of who we are.
Awesome. Piston, I couldn't stop because you were just having time there. So, awesome. Guys, I'm going to stop our main recording